Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and call the meeting order for the Monroe County Election Board. Oh, perfect, bam. For December 5. I think the first item of business are approval of minutes.
So the minutes that are going up for approval are October 10th, October 15th, October 24th, and November 4th and 5th.
I am happy to make a motion to approve the minutes as dictated.
Second.
I have a second, but also there should be minutes from November 15th, the provisional hearing.
I have those minutes here.
Okay.
I have had some grammatical things, but missed my colleague getting a chance to fix them. They're cosmetic, grammatical. Otherwise, I have no problem also adding that to the motion as well.
Well, I have no, I second all of those being accepted.
So we have a motion and a second on approval of minutes. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the next item on the agenda is the general election recap. Nicole?
All right. Well, first of all, happy holidays to you both, and I hope you had a wonderful Thanksgiving. For your bingo cards, I just wanted to do an election recap. And so we had 93,146 registered voters, and 59,914 voted in this general election, which is reflective of a 64.32% turnout. There were 5,361 voters who voted absentee. There were 30,625 voters who voted early, and 23,928 voters who voted on Election Day. It appears that the highest precinct turnout was Perry 18 with an 80.10% turnout for that precinct, and the lowest was Bloomington 7 with a 9.46% turnout. For the provisional ballots that we did take care of on November 15th, we had 390 ballots that were reviewed by the election board. 331 of those ballots were rejected, and 59 ballots were approved and counted. And in a huge shout out to our poll workers, we had 29 inspectors, 84 judges, 245 clerks, 42 sheriffs, for a total of 400 people working for us on Election Day, as well as 320 total early voting workers and 356 young people aged 16 to 17 signed up to work this election. And so I want to give a huge shout out to every single person who served either early voting or Election Day. What an incredible turnout. And I forgot one other statistic. Thank you, Ms. Kiley, for noting this. For location turnout, we had 1,901 voters who voted at St. John's. That's reflective of 40% of the eligible voters who report to that polling site. And then at Burgoon, 112 people voted. And for them, that is a 78.05% turnout. So looks like it was a really good election. Thank you to one and all.
Thank you. Just want to add a couple of comments if I can. I mean, it seemed like for the most part, the execution of the election went well. We had a few hiccups with number of ballots that we'll want to, start thinking ahead. How do we mitigate that? I'm also a little worried that we had some equipment failure. So I think as we look to the next election, making sure that we're taking all of our kind of after action reporting and baking in. I think there's an issue around training that we're going to have to be clear about in terms of what we're telling voters as they come in. I mean, the situation at the Memorial Union was really unfortunate. I'm not sure where the breakdown was in that, but to have so many people waiting in line to cast a provisional vote when they weren't even registered in Monroe County seems like there's a breakdown in communication somewhere. And I don't know if it's at the front of the line or as they're going through the process. I know that there's issues of telling people that, if they want to cast a ballot, they can cast a ballot. But it just seems like a real, unforced error. And some might hope that we could get ahead of before the next election. Also say that I thought want to, thank the GIS department team for, pulling together an experiment in terms of how we can improve reporting. I think there's a platform there that can be beneficial. But, we need to think about how do we build on the learnings that we have and bake in, a database that can provide some historical trend lines and good information that others can use in terms of evaluating the effectiveness of our elections, but also turnout data, et cetera. I do have a concern about that I'll come back to in a different format, but I think there were some things that happened on election day related to Ann Island LLC that I think were confusing. I'll just leave it at that. And it's something that I'll try and find a different format for following up on, but I do have some concerns about that. I guess the last thing I would say is that, there's going to be a convention center being built at the location where we have been doing early voting for several years. And would suggest it's not too early to be engaging in conversations with the commissioners and others to be planning ahead and evaluating what the future looks like in terms of locations, where we'll have access that won't be disruptive to other functions. I mean, that was such a great site because it was a standalone building with a lot of parking. Not located in downtown Bloomington 2 years from now are kind of slim and none. So I think it's behooves us to start thinking now about where we're going to have that kind of facility in the future. So those are my comments. But again, I thought the overall, I think the team did a really good job under some difficult circumstances, responding to some glitches and handling things in a very open and transparent way. So thank you to the team. Anything you want to add? No?
I agree with you, and I think you did a good summary of some of the issues we had that day and what we're facing in the future. So.
Okay. All right, next item on the agenda, unless there's public comment on the update. I don't see any, so we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is a Vote Center Study Committee update.
Good afternoon.
Good to see you all. I'm Ami Gandhi, representing the Vote Center Study Committee. I'm not sure if you've had a chance to review the minutes from our last meeting, which was around mid-November, but our committee wanted to make sure to alert you of the main outcome of that meeting, which is that we took a straw poll to get a sense of where each committee member was inclined to go relating to the possibility of recommending vote centers for Monroe County, and wanted to share with you the results of that and also share with you our ask, because we have a similar sort of question for the election board about where you may be inclined, or if it's too early to ask that question, get a better sense of what information you may be looking for, what analysis you may be looking for in order to weigh in more on that. And so where we're at with the numbers as far as our committee participation is that the most number of people, 6 people on the committee, were inclined at this time to suggest that Monroe County should move to a vote center model, selecting 22 vote center sites based on an analysis of proximity to voters, turnout, socioeconomic factors, and the site suitability, among other factors that we've been getting a lot of community input and engagement on over the last several months. So that's where 6 people were at. In addition, there were a couple of us stragglers in other categories. One recommended that Monroe County not adopt a vote center model, so in other words, to stay with precinct-based polling places like the current system. One, me, recommended that Monroe County convert all existing polling sites to vote centers. A little bit of tweak to that, I would say, which I can say because it was me, is that what I recommended is that the amount stay the same, the number stay the same, but not necessarily that it needs to be that identical building that was used in the last election, because of you all know, all of the considerations that go into selecting a suitable location, and how my recommendation was that the numbers stay the same, but there be an openness to the sensibility of other locations to do a swap where needed. And one person abstained. And we definitely have had a reasoned approach to analysis and recommendations, so all of us remain open to further input, analysis, and discussion. But in order to move forward with our next steps as our committee in continuing to draft a report, we have a bare bones draft report started, but to be of more value and do what our committee is supposed to do, to be able to put more of the substance into the report, the committee was wanting to know the inclination of our election board members, so that we have a sense of really what type of length of analysis to put in, and if this is going somewhere, if there's a possibility of this model change going somewhere. I do want to back up for a moment and share as well that all of our committee members were interested in the importance of the vote center plan having a reasoned, detailed discussion about safeguards that are needed. We all are interested in guarding against inadvertent consequences of a vote center model, such as the possibility in future election board administrations, maybe in the remote future, of gamesmanship around vote center locations or something like that. So it was not an immediate concern for the committee, but wanting to build in enough substance in the recommendations in the vote center plan to guard against inadvertent harm of a vote center model in the future. We all were on the same page about that. And our next meeting is December 11th. It starts at 5 as usual. We imagine it'll be a longer session going till 7 so that we can really flesh out the report more. But with that, I want to get your input that we can take back to the committee and anyone else who has been following this issue with interest, which has been a rising number of voters, community members, and community organizations, to know where the election board is inclined so that we can be of service in our committee to continue with the report and analysis.
Thank you. Do my colleagues have any questions or a response to Ami's request?
I have one. Have you had an opportunity to meet with Molly Turner King with regard to the requirements, the statutory requirements for the plan?
We would be happy to meet with Molly more. We have talked with her on a couple of occasions inside the meetings, including inside the meetings themselves, but would be glad to talk more. We're familiar with the requirements, the state statutory requirements, if that's what you mean, but we would always be glad to talk more with Molly and learn more from her.
Well, it's important that she, because she, being the lawyer, you don't really have to worry about that as much. Once you sit down with your plan, she can do that for you and make sure that those requirements are there, which might help you move along. But I would be inclined to, myself, look at the 22 center vote center model plan myself, but assuming that those, and I guess my thought is, whatever you present to us, we, as the board, can change. So whatever you present is not written in stone. And you're nodding, so I think you know that then, correct? Okay, great. All right.
Yes, I agree that it's the board that would have the authority to come to a unanimous agreement and make the adjustments to the plan. That said, the plan is useful, can be useful and instructive and enforceable once it's
absolutely.
done. So the plan itself is important in terms of the legal status it has under what the state statute confers. But if it's in there or an amendment that the board unanimously agrees on, then it's solid.
I would be inclined toward to side with your proposal of keeping the existing numbers, because the night that I visited the Vote Center Committee, there was concern about disenfranchisement, and so if you, at least for the first election of vote centers, use the number of existing, then no one can say that we took away a site that lent to the appearance of disenfranchisement, that election would be a data gathering election as well as just the opportunity to vote. So that data could then be used by future clerks to go forward if, to see where you could remove a site or if you need to add additional sites, whatever. But your suggestion is the one that I would be inclined to.
I guess I have a couple of questions. One is that when we look at the notion of essentially universal vote center sites, right? What are the implications in terms of equipment requirements? Does that change the kind of anything in terms of the inventory? I mean, it seems like it shouldn't, other than the risk of really slowing things down in high turnout areas where you're
Need more
ballots on demand.
One thing that would change is we would have to increase the number of print devices and printers that we have, because currently we only have one printer for the touch writers at each location, and we only have, I believe, 6 print devices that we use at early voting.
So that I guess in terms of content, I mean I think that's going to be important information for people to have, not because it necessarily is decisive in terms of a judgment, but more of awareness that I think there's a value proposition that's probably well established that if you can increase participation, make it easier for people to vote, that's an investment that's probably worth making. On the other hand, what is the magnitude of that change compared to our current, budget? I mean, so that's something I would want to know. I mean, I would be kind of, there's part of me that I'm sensitive to Nicole's comment about people feeling disenfranchised. I don't know, it's clearly not anybody's intent. I look at it almost more from a just market data. There's a lot of analysis people can do based on geographic mapping, household population, proximity, et cetera, et cetera. And a lot of that can be really good analysis. And then it meets the reality of how people live or where they work. And, to get that kind of very real actual data in terms of the choices people are going to make on where they want to go vote, I think that could really help inform future voting sites if we're going to move from the current number that we have down to 22 or however many. I think it would just give us really good data for making that kind of decision. But again, I mean, there's going to be a trade-off there in terms of what's the incremental cost going to be. And then I guess the third thing is just more of a question, is that once there is a vote center plan, and if it's approved, is it, what's the process for amending it? So if we started out with multiple vote centers at the existing places on an interim basis with the intent that we're going to probably consolidate in the future, is that something that we just do as a board, or how does that work?
I want to provide a start to the answer to that last question you asked, because we've been looking into it recently, including with a colleague of mine, and it seems to me that with counties that have already gone to a vote center model, that their election boards will, in some instances, regularly amend the vote center plan, which would have to be done by unanimous decision, but to account for some election-specific, year-specific issues that come up, wanting to move a location, for example, or make other modifications to bring it more up to date. And so it does seem like election boards are in the practice of doing that. I don't know how sticky it gets in terms of coming to an agreement again unanimously about those sorts of changes that may be local specific in different counties in terms of how contested those get. But it is very common in vote center counties in Indiana for those unanimous amendments to happen over time, and probably there need to be capacity carved out to keep up with doing that.
We have, someone has their hand up. I think it's Molly, actually, so.
Hi. I think the process for amending the plan is that it's just a unanimous vote and then it's filed with the state, but I'm happy to double check on that and send the election board further information.
That's what, thank you, and that's what I would assume. I just want to make clear that we're not backing ourselves in a, corner that's going to be difficult to, respond to real live data and continue to make. But have we answered all the questions you need answered? I mean,
Almost. So I want to get back to a couple of points that you made and mentioned that in the vote center study committee meetings, I think we have been making significant progress in the first couple of questions that you asked about understanding the cost, especially the upfront cost. It would be an interesting question to write it out more specifically about what's the upfront cost, because that's one data point and not the only relevant one, because of also some cost savings that would be involved. Although I think we're all in agreement that that's not the main exercise of this committee or this possible policy change, but it is an important consideration too. And so we have more specific numbers on that now that would of course go into the write-up. And then also, we have made progress, and thank you so much to the county personnel who invested time and expertise into this about the data analysis and mapping and visualization, and so that's available as well. And I'm not sure if, Kylie, if you wanted to mention anything about either of those points.
I do know that there has been some conversation around like what were to happen if the election board in the future were to not agree on vote center locations, and they have been worried about what would happen after that. And there has been some conversation about that there is somewhere in code that says that it would go back to a precinct-based location, precinct-based county. And so that's one thing that they've been a little bit worried about. But I have been in conversation with IED, and they're kind of conversating back and forth with each other about that. But altogether, I feel like the vote center committee has done a great job on working together. Now it's just that like final stretch of getting the proposal completed and getting it reviewed with Molly to make sure everything's there, and then to bring it to you guys. But I appreciate you guys working so hard, and hope that I've been able to help you guys as much as possible with the crazy election that's been going on and just being busy in general.
Definitely appreciate your valuable help. So did those answers or idea about where to find the answers, is that helpful? And does it give you a sense of which way you're inclined to go? And if not, if it depends on some more substance to those data points, I understand, but I know that the committee will ask us about that. No,
it's fine. I mean, I'll be transparent. I mean, I'd like to get this approved as soon as we, at least get it up for a vote as soon as we can. I'm more inclined to do the universal kind of trial, if you will, or I wouldn't even call it a trial, but sort of a, phase one of the plan, so that we can get that data on where people are choosing to vote. But having the financial information would be really important, because I think there's an opportunity to, since we don't have an election in 2025, we can work with the commissioners and the county council, assuming we, decide to do this, to, spread those upfront costs over multiple fiscal years and not just, do it in 1 year.
I will say one thing. With Hart, they have said that if we are to switch over, that they would suggest a 6 to 9 month window of ordering the equipment itself to make sure that it is processed and to us in time, and then also just to make sure that we have enough time for training for the staff, as well as for us to get training material updated for the new equipment that we would be bringing in for Election Day. And I did forget to mention that on the new equipment that we would have to have for the vote centers, the poll books would need to be updated, or otherwise we would need to purchase extra printers for the poll books, because in a vote center plan, it would be that they would get a ticket from that poll book to then scan at the printer to print their ballot. So that would be one thing that we would have to add as additionally.
Other questions?
That was really helpful. I'm wondering if my fellow committee member, Ralph Shaw, thought I needed to add anything else. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Not for me, thank you.
Thank you.
Any public comment on the vote center report? I don't see any in the room or any on Zoom. Under new business, there's an item just for information regarding the one recount request that was made. Can anybody kind of inform us on what's happening on that front? Oh, looks like Molly's got her hand up. Thank you, Molly.
So Mr. Davis has filed in the court a request for a recount. He had until yesterday to post a bond, but subsequently filed 2 additional motions. And so I think that the county has until December 12th to file a response. So I'm going to ask the election board if it is okay that I enter an appearance and go ahead and legally respond to his request.
Do we need that in the form of a vote?
That would be preferable.
I would entertain such a motion.
Make a motion that Molly Turner King be authorized to file an appearance in the Joe Davis recount. I don't think I have the cause number, but lawsuit.
I have the cause number. I guess if the bond was not filed, I don't understand how it goes forward.
That's true, but I think all that's being asked is that since we're meeting today and the deadline's the 12th, that this is an opportunity to at least authorize Molly to file an appearance on behalf of the board. So then at that hearing on the 12th, if there isn't a hearing, that we're at least set up to be represented.
I will second the motion.
Yeah, great. All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. All right, now we are to the point of the agenda for any public comment on issues that weren't on the agenda. Oh, I'm
Before-
sorry, we got one more.
Thank you. I wanted to read this letter into. I know what you're trying to do, John. This is a letter addressed to John as chairman of the board, And I'm going to read this into the record. It is with some regret and disappointment that I am announcing my decision to resign my position as the Republican representative on the Monroe County Election Board, effective December 31st, 2024. I have chosen to get involved in other volunteer activities that help the community and need to withdraw from this board to give me sufficient time to dedicate myself to these activities. It has been an honor and privilege to serve on the board since July of 2023. I had hoped that the vote center issue would have been resolved before I took my leave. However, it does not appear that that will be the case. If by chance the committee puts together a draft plan that meets the statutory requirements before the end of the year, I would be available to attend a special meeting of the board to assess the plan. Unless that takes place, my replacement will have the responsibility to cast the Republican vote. I thank both past Monroe County Republican Chairperson Taylor Bryant, who appointed me to this board, and current Monroe County Republican Chairperson William Ellis for trusting me to carry out the duties of a board member. It has been a pleasure to work with you, Chairman Fernandez, Clerk Brown, Molly Turner King, and Kylie Ferris, and I wish you the best going forward.
Thank you. We really appreciate your service, and you'll be missed.
Well, thank you.
Great, thank you so
I
much.
gotta have to find a new buddy to drive around that. We are at that point in the agenda where if there's members of the public that want to address a board, please come forward, say your name, and we have 3 minutes.
I'm sorry, while she's walking up, John Arnold is here. He's in the audience, and it's my understanding that he will be appointed by William Ellis to replace me, and he is to send you a letter, Nicole, okay?
William
will be sending you a letter.
Before I start, my name is Cheryl Langdon, and I have timed what I have to say, 3 minutes. I would be appreciative if no one would interrupt me so I can stay on track. Okay. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home sweet home. In the fall of 1938, as fascism and war threatened Europe, Irving Berlin decided to write a peace song. He recalled an unpublished version of a song that he had set aside in his trunk, took it out, shaped it into the second national anthem, God Bless America. I recently experienced swatting. Swatting is a criminal act that involves deceiving emergency services into sending police or emergency response team to a wrong address. It is a form of harassment. I was visited by 2 uniformed county police officers on November 2nd, the Saturday before Election Day. My neighbors saw 2 official police vehicles in my driveway, and I looked like a criminal while I was being intimidated by the police and embarrassed by county officials who were trying to find just cause to stop me from voting on Election Day. They ran my ID like I was a criminal and even requested a DNA sample. It was outrageous. I was interrogated on my front stoop in my pajamas and house robe like I was trash. They were trying to find a way to stop me from voting on that Tuesday. The legislation put through earlier this year is to protect voters in our elections. It's not for weaponizing against free American voters like myself. I'm a service-disabled veteran. I cannot believe the Gestapo tactics that are being used against free, dedicated Americans like me. It's against the law to maliciously weaponize police personnel against innocent Americans. I'm proud to say that I stood up for myself that Saturday, on Election Day, and today. I found out later that it was some sort of anonymous letter against Kylie Moreland Ferris. I'm not surprised. I've seen Kylie's mishandling in the 2023's election process, and I reported it. And I have yet to be asked to testify in an investigation concerning Kylie's mishandling of security last year and Clerk Brown's administration's conduct for the past 3 years. I want to remind everyone that America won last month, and it's about time we win more often than not. And I also want to remind John Fernandez that His treatment towards me during an earlier election board meeting this year was against his duty as a public servant. It's literally your job, John, to allow me my right to speak here. I say again, God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam, God bless America, my home sweet home. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, that's all the business we have today, unless there's anyone on the online that wants to make public comments. If not, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
May I make a motion to recess in the event that we get a date prior to the end of the year that we could reconvene to vote on a proposed plan?
Don't we need to have a specific date?
I thought you needed to publish. If you get a date, you needed to publish.
I think it would just be that we have to adjourn because we don't have a specific date and time that we would be meeting.
Go ahead, Molly. I think she's going to say that, but yeah.
That's exactly what I was going to say. To recess, you have to state the date and time.
So we will
We'll just
entertain
have to
motion
post a 48.
adjourn, and then if we need to have another meeting, we will properly notice it.
I second.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye.